Hey girls, I'm excited to tell you about the assignment we're going to be doing throughout this unit on the bean trees. It's called a dialectical journal. As you'll notice in this first paragraph, dialectic means the art or practice of arriving at the truth by using conversation involving question and answer. The dialectic was the same method that Socrates used to teach his students how to be actively engaged in the struggle to obtain meaning from an unfamiliar and challenging work. A dialectical journal is a written conversation with yourself about a piece of literature that encourages the habit of reflective questioning. So you can see from that first paragraph that the goal of this assignment is to help you come to a deeper meaning by thinking about and reflecting on quotations that you've chosen from our novel. Normally these types of reflections are assigned as homework, but I recognize that the Bean Trees is a little bit lengthy of a novel and you guys have a little bit of reading homework. So rather than asking you to do your reflections at home every night, I'm going to ask you to start each class day by writing your dialectical journal. Woohoo! Okay, so here's your homework throughout this assignment. We've already started this. For each night's reading, I want you to find 2 or 3 passages that are significant and worthy of further reflection. These could be passages that ask you to question, to think about something that's unclear, to connect, to draw a connection to your life, the world, or another text, predict, anticipate what will occur based on what's in the passage, clarify, answer earlier questions or confirm or disaffirm a prediction, reflect, think deeply about what the passage means in the broad sense, not just the character in the story or to the author of the article or of the book. What conclusions could you draw about the world, about human nature, or just the way things work? Or lastly, to evaluate, to make a judgment about what the author's trying to say. As you find these 2 or 3 passages that you want to discuss, I would suggest that you label them in your books with the labeling system above, so that way when you come to class the next day, you already know what types of thoughts you want to share with me. So then in class, instead of starting with a warm-up, and we're going to practice this today, you're going to start by writing your dialectical journal. And your reflection is going to do the same thing you were looking for in your reading homework. So you're going to question, connect, predict, clarify, reflect, or evaluate. Now, that's a lot of jobs. I am not expecting you to do each of those things in every single writing assignment. Instead, what you should do is choose, depending on your passage, if you want to question about that passage or connect with that passage. Maybe you can do 2 of those jobs in a single response, but I would never expect to see all of them in all of your responses. We'll have about 6 dialectical journals total that we're going to write, so you'll have time to try each of those different strategies. So here's how we're going to format the dialectical journal. We're going to paste the quote in. I've given you a link to the electronic copy of the text here, so if you have a physical version of the book, you can find your quote really quickly and just paste it in, and that way you can get started writing. We'll have about 10 to 15 minutes to write in class. I'm going to collect the dialectical journals every day, but I'm only going to grade them 2 times. Each of those gradings is going to be worth 25 points. You've got the rubric here. We'll come back to this rubric later, or you're welcome to peruse it on your own. What I want to show you right now is a sample dialectical journal, since we're going to get started with our dialectical journals in just a second. So you'll see that I've set up my header on the left with my regular MLA information. I've titled this Dialectical Journal number 1, and then I have my quotation right here. So this is the quotation when Taylor decides that she's going to go ahead and give herself a name, her own name, and how she's going to go about doing that. So let's read it together. When I drove over the Pitman line, I made 2 promises to myself. One I kept, the other I did not. The first was that I would get myself a new name. I wasn't crazy about anything I had been called up to that point in my life, and this seemed like the time to make a clean break. I didn't have any special name in mind, but just wanted a change. The more I thought about it, the more it seemed to me that a name is not something a person really has the right to pick out, but is something you're provided with more or less by chance. I decided to let the gas tank decide. Whether it ran out, or wherever it ran out, I'd look for a sign. I came pretty close to being named after Homer, Illinois, but kept pushing it. I kept my fingers crossed through Sydney, Satyrus, Cerro Gordo, Decatur, and Blue Mound, and coasted into Taylorville on fumes. And so, I am Taylor Greer. I suppose you could say I had some part in choosing my name, but there was enough destiny in it to satisfy me. So I've decided that with this quote, I want to try to do 2 things. I want to question, and I want to predict. So the first thing I'm going to do down here is brainstorm some questions. Why does Taylor want to choose her own name? Is it related to the fact that she was unhappy with her life in Kentucky before her departure? Does it symbolize a clean break with her old life? What will her mother think? I've got a lot of questions here. I could probably keep going, but at this point I probably want to try to answer them. So I could go back and I can speculate. And I would say something like, so why does Taylor want to choose her own name? I bet that Taylor wants to be, or I'm going to say something like, it sounds like Taylor really wants fate to play a role or a bigger role in her life. It seems like she trusts fate. I wonder if this means that she will be open to more acts of fate in the future. Perhaps we could see her willingness to adopt the Native American child as a symbol of that same trust in fate. So you'll notice what I've started to do here is not just answer the questions, but also to do the predictions that I said I was going to do here, right? So I told you I was going to say, I was going to predict, so now I'm starting to think about the future. So I would spend the rest of my 10 or 15 minutes trying to answer these same questions that I've already written, and then also trying to come up with more questions I could ask to help me analyze and understand this quote. All right, so I would suggest first thing you want to do is grab your quote, paste it in at the top of a Google Doc, and then you want to spend 10 or 15 minutes trying to answer it. You have a lot of jobs you can do. You can question, connect, predict, clarify, reflect, or evaluate, but just focus on one or two of those jobs for today. Remember to turn your work into Canvas when you're done. I look forward to seeing your work. Thanks, girls.